Hello, ladies and gentlemen, this is Ruin Snow. Today we'll be doing Magic the Gathering top 10 lurker cards. So now, at number 10. So we're going to start off with this list with an odet lurker from 5th Dawn. It's a common just going for a whopping 22 cents on the market. And well, when it comes to the graveyard from play, you gain 3 life. So even if it's exiled, you don't gain that 3 life. I just feel like for 5 for that 3/3 is just, it's way too expensive for what it can do. So let's move on to number 9. We have Crypt Lurker from Core Set 2021. It's a common, and that's right. It can't get any cheaper than that other than being free. 1 cent. Well, it costs 4 for a 3/4, which is actually fine, pretty decent compared to the last one. When it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature or discard a creature card. If you do, draw a card. So I think this is actually a pretty decent card. I don't know why it's only worth at least 1 cent. Maybe drop it, put it up to 3 cents, but again, that's the way it is, and that's the way it's valued. So let's move on to number 8. Well, we got Lash Weed Lurker from Eldritch Moon or The List. It's an uncommon going for just 6 cents on the market. It's a little more expensive than the last card. Costs 8 for a 5/4, but it does have Emerge, which is casting cost of 7. Again, that's very expensive. But when you cast it, you may put a target non-land permanent on top of its owner's library. So that's really good because of its ability to cost so much. So by that point, an opponent might have a big casting creature, and this would help it. And it could be a non-land, so it could be a planeswalker on top of that. That's why it's at number 8. But let's move on to number 7. Next, we got a classic, Marsh Lurker from Tempus. It's a common, just going for 7 cents on the market. These lurkers are getting really expensive, aren't they? Cost 4 for a 3/2. Sacrifice a swamp. It cannot be blocked this turn except for by artifact or black creatures. I think that's just a really cool ability. If you have an extra swamp, and if your opponent doesn't have black creatures or artifact, this can be very, very helpful, especially if you're trying to pump it up. So let's move on to number 6. Well, we got jurob by Lurker, and I love this card. It's from Magic 2015. It's an uncommon just going for 4 cents. I know, it's just a personal favorite. I know it's not a good card. It costs 3 for this 1/3. It gets +1/+1 as long as you control a swamp. So maybe a 2/4. And target creature gains lifelink until end of turn. So that's really cool because it doesn't have a tapping ability, so you can target all your creatures if you have it. That's the reason why it's at number 6. Other than that, I would make it a bit higher for my personal, but So let's move on to number 5. So halfway down our list, we have Boneyard Lurker from Ikora, Lair of Behemoths. It's an uncommon. That's right, 9 cents. Well, it's only good because Mutate was such a big thing when it was standard. Cost 4 for a 4/4, so even without the Mutate, this is really cool. And whenever this creature mutates, return target perm card from your graveyard to your hand. And again, that is really cool. And just Mutate is a very interesting concept that doesn't really exist anymore. So let's move on to number 4. And we have Emory, Lurker of the Lock from various sets. It's a rare going for $1.88 at the time of this video. Costs 3 for this one too. It says this spell costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control, which can be very helpful. And when it enters the battle, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. Tap it, choose target artifact card in your graveyard. You may cast that card this turn. Lot of combos, but we won't get into that. So let's just straight up move on to number 3. Well, what we have is Leeching Lurker from Innistrad Midnight Hunt, or the double feature thing. And it's a rare going for 22 cents on the market. Now, this is the flip side of the card, so it's not the original one. It is a 4/4 lifelink and does have Nightbound. If a player casts at least 2 spells during their own turn, it becomes day next turn. So regardless of the whole Nightbound thing, at the time you get this flipped card, 4/4 lifelink can be very helpful if you do know how this card works. And I think that's why it deserves this spot. So let's move on to number 2. And that's right, we got Lurker, the original one from the dark. It's a rare going for $4.50. It costs 3 for a 2/3 and may not be the target of any spells unless Lurker was declared as an attacker or blocker this turn. I think this original card is still pretty good, regardless of the price being old, probably. It does have strong, so if you don't attack or block, it pretty much could stay on the board. And I think that's very powerful compared to all Lurker cards, believe it or not. But let's move on to number 1. And at the number 1 spot, we got Gudul Lurker from Dragons of Tarkir. It's an uncommon going for 83 cents. That's right. And the reason why it is, costs 1 for a 1/1 that can't be blocked. And it has Megamorph. Just the ability of getting that Salamander out for that 1/1, I think, is a huge difference compared to all the Lurker cards. Because if they don't play anything, this can be quite powerful, especially with Megamorph of only 1. I think that's, again, my personal thing. I think this is really good, and that's why it deserves the number 1 spot. So I hope you guys have a good day and a good evening.